This is the new 2024 Subaru Impreza RS. Today we're in Central California to check out all the features and then take it for a drive. That's coming up right now on Driving Sports TV. This is the all-new 6th generation Impreza. For 2024, Subaru has significantly reworked its popular compact car with more power, improved style, better tech, and best of all, it's only available as a 5-door hatchback. Though you can get it with a 2-liter boxer motor, in this review, I'm going to focus on the sporty Impreza RS trim, which comes standard with a revised 2.5-liter 4-cylinder. This engine is similar to the one found in the upcoming Crosstrek and the current Forester. Peak output is rated at 182 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. That's actually a couple extra horsepower over the older 2.5s. The only transmission option is a Lineartronic CVT. Of course, Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive is standard. The RS features sport-tuned suspension, so it should handle pretty well on the twisty roads around here. The standard tire on this RS trim is an 18-inch blacked-out alloy. I think it looks really good. It's wrapped in a Yokohama AWD S34 tire that is sized at a 225/40 R18. Now also I have to point out that the bolt pattern on the RS and actually all new Imprezas is now a 5x114.3, which means that it is the same size as the Subaru Forester. The old pattern was an older 5x100, which Subaru is moving away from. Other features exclusive to this RS include side air dams, a blacked out interior, and metal pedals. EPA rates economy at 26 miles to the gallon in the city and 33 on the highway. Considering the 16.6 gallon fuel tank, that means this has close to 500 miles of range between fuel ups. For 2024, the pricing does increase slightly on the Impreza, but so does the list of included standard features. The RS we have here starts at $28,975 US, including destination. The base trim starts at $24,085 US. It seems like with every generation of new car, they get bigger. Well, thankfully, this one is still the same size. In the back, it has 19.9 cubic feet of available cargo space. Fold all the seats flat for up to 54.7 cubic feet. That is a little less compared to the previous generation, and that's possibly because of the swept side that they have back here, which accentuates the hip, but does encroach just a little bit in the inside. Underneath the floor here, let's see what we got. It is a fix-a-flat kit. As an added bonus, you also get a couple of cup holders in the back for those times when you're done camping and you just want to sit and put your water bottle somewhere. This is nice. Oh, and it looks like Subaru has jumped on the Easter egg bandwagon. There is a little Impreza in the mountains. Nice. Though you don't see a roof rack on this particular car, there are attachment points, so you can add one later. Also a nice feature, they have a flat step in here to help you access what is on top. In the back seat, we have more legroom than the outgoing model. This is where I would sit if I were driving. I'm 6'1", legs torso proportionate, got lots of room for my legs. My head is pretty good. Lots of room on top, a little rubbing on the side, but not too bad. Over here, I get a fold-down armrest with integrated cup holders, and then I also get a USB-A and USB-C socket. Unfortunately, no vents in the second row, but I think that's my only complaint. Okay. Here we are finally inside the new Impreza RS. It's powered up, got a push button start. The first thing you'll notice is this massive 11.6-inch vertical tablet. This incorporates a lot of the features of the vehicle, but one thing nice that Subaru didn't do is they didn't put all the buttons in the infotainment system. We still have a lot of buttons on the steering wheel. We have physical controls for temperature, and we have a volume knob and a tuning knob. That is all great. What they do have in here are a number of functions that you may not need to use all the time, but you can access. So up here, for example, this is where we can look at weather, engine temperature, and current media that you're playing, be it radio or XM or whatnot. If I click up here, then I can actually add some additional widgets, which is pretty neat. Let's add the calendar. Oh, no, actually, you know what? I want to take calendar off. Let's put accelerator pedal. So now I can see the percentage of my accelerator pedal. How cool is that? Below that, we have your typical button interface. I don't care for the design that they use. I find these rendered buttons to be kind of a 1990s web page throwback, but here they are. The functionality is there. So we have nice color coding on some of the key features, and we can flick over and you can see we can even add shortcuts from the system. If we want to bring something that's a little deeper in the system, bring it forward, we can do that here. For example, settings. If I want to go, say I want to turn off the steering responsive headlights, now I have a button just a click away, and now they will be locked facing straight. Turn it back on, and they will pivot with the steering wheel, which is a really neat feature. That is available, actually not even available, that comes standard now on all Imprezas, which is really cool. Hit this button, we go back home again. This does support wireless Apple CarPlay. I've already set it up. It's actually a very easy process. You just go to the device screen, add your device, answer a couple questions, and boom, you have wireless CarPlay. And then when we're hooked up, there's a wireless charging pad right here. And it supports the full vertical display, even the maps, which is really neat. Below that, we have a row of buttons. These ones are always on. They give me my quick key for home, but I also get a vehicle button here, which is neat. This gives me all the settings that I need to have immediately accessible, including vehicle dynamics, what kind of cruise control I want to set up. You can make it more aggressive or a little bit more laid back. Also, there's vehicle hold. If I want to be on a hill, take my foot off the brake, it'll hold on the hill for a brief moment. And you can also see auto start stop. There's a button in the settings, but you also get a quick key right here. So if you don't like that feature, every time you get in the vehicle, you can just pop that off and the vehicle won't pause on stop signs and stop lights. And then, yes, under that, we do have aircon on the screen. However, I will say Subaru was smart. They gave the defrost buttons up here, so you don't need to wait for the system to boot in the morning. You can immediately hit defrost. I also have buttons here for temperature, which is nice. And then these buttons here are actually pretty responsive. I don't mind that. This does have seat warmers, and they are physical switches down below, which is good. One thing kind of interesting about this aircon, it'll detect who is in which seat and only direct that temperature to the person in that seat. That's a pretty cool feature, and it is standard across the Imprezas now. And if I want a deeper menu, I can just click on that and I get visual buttons, but you don't need that. This is all replicated here and down there. Although this is how you say which zone you want to turn, have the fans flowing to. So there is that. Under that, we do get USB-C, USB-A, and an aux audio input. When was the last time you saw an aux audio input? Well, Subaru has carried it over to the 2024 model year. The center console has been updated. Because we don't have a handbrake anymore, we have this little hydraulic button that frees up some additional space here. They've used that to do diagonal cup holders and then throw a 12-volt socket down here. Actually, I really like that here. The transmission is a CVT. You can only get this with a continuously variable transmission. There's no manual, and no, Subaru's not developing a dual clutch system. So this is what you get, and of course I'll talk more about that when I drive in just a little bit. Over here, the gauge cluster is your typical Subaru gauge cluster. That really hasn't changed much in recent years. This one is color-coded to match the RS. It has red rings, and then it has a multi-function display in the middle. So we can look at all sorts of data, such as MPGs, tire pressures, all of that. Steering wheel is wrapped with a synthetic wrap. This does have cloth seats, you will notice, and they are manual, but there's some nice adjustments there, so that's pretty good. And yeah, I do get paddle shifters if I want to have sporty driving, and yes, this is a CVT, but it can emulate a stepped transmission, and it will emulate different ratios depending on if you're in SI drive or ISI drive. Those are kind of the drive modes in a way. Anyway, steering wheel looks nice, everything's integrated. This will be nothing new for anybody who's driven a Subaru in the last few years. Since this is an RS, It's black on black on black, so you have a lot of black on the inside, and then you get the sporty red trim. There is a rear camera. It's the same old Subaru rear camera. It's not great, but it does provide the functionality that you need. As I turn the wheel, you can see that it has guidelines, and this RS level does not have rear auto braking, so you will have to hit the brake pedal. It won't detect things for you. Okay, well, I think we have covered all of the important details of this new car. So I think it's time to take it for a drive. Today I'm out here in the countryside around Paso Robles, in the wine country, to test the handling of this new vehicle. And you know, there's just so many improvements, it's kind of hard to know exactly where to start. I mean, the tech's better because it has this big screen, if you like that kind of thing. The handling is better because it has improved steering rack. It also has a stiffer chassis, and because of the stiffer chassis, they actually went with slightly softer springs. So it's a different ride than the previous Impreza. Also, they've done lots of little things to improve noise, vibration, and harshness, reducing all of that. So you end up with a more premium driving experience. But does premium driving experience also mean that it's not as much fun? Let's find out. Naturally, this being a Subaru, it has a continuously variable transmission. So it doesn't have real gears. However, you can step them with these paddles on this RS trim, and it'll do a pretty convincing job of stepping through the different gears. Will it hold the gear all the way to redline? No. Even if you're in full manual mode and we go all the way down, let's say go down to 2, and I hold the gear, at 5,800 it shifts whether I want it to or not, obviously to protect the motor. But outside of that, I can flip the paddles all day long and have a grand old time with it. Now, it is unfortunate that there is no manual transmission option for this vehicle, but Subaru does sell the WRX with a manual, and I think a lot of the more hardcore enthusiasts are going to go in that direction. You know, if you want a manual, get the WRX. However, if you want good economy, something smart and sensible that also has good all-wheel drive and is fairly sporty, yeah, the new Impreza definitely checks all the boxes. Now let's talk about the all-wheel drive system. This uses Subaru's active torque split all-wheel drive, which, you know, is commonly known as a 60-40 split. But the fact is that it's constantly shifting power. And this new version shifts power to the back faster than the previous model. So you get a lot quicker response in tricky situations. And today it is a chance of rain. We have a little bit of runoff, so some of the corners are a little slick. So we're definitely using that all-wheel drive. Now let's feel what it's like to accelerate into a corner. I'm gonna gear down, throw the throttle in. Yeah, you don't get that rear wheel push that you get with the WRX because this is a much more front-wheel drive focused all-wheel drive system. But in terms of confidence in the corners, it's still very good. So this is the bigger engine in the Impreza. Let's see what it can do with a 0 to 60. I'm gonna stop completely. So I'm gonna have SI drive set for sport and the transmission just set to drive. 3, 2, 1, and go. Pretty good pickup there. 40, 50, and 60. 8.11 seconds, which is not bad. I mean, if you want something faster, get a WRX. And if you look at other vehicles in this class, yeah, I think this Impreza actually really, compares very nicely. If you do feature to feature with like the Elantra, with the Honda Civic, with any of those type of vehicles, I think that this Impreza really looks good, especially considering the fact that it's standard with all-wheel drive. Let's hit this corner, tap the brakes, throttle into the corner. Throttle response is pretty good. Steering is great. I love this new steering feel. And the fact that everything is quieter. I can actually hear the wind on the side mirrors just a little bit, which previous versions of the Impreza had so much going on with the motor and the powertrain. You really couldn't hear all of these other things. But this one, it's dare I say it feels premium. It really does. So here's a little side story. Back when I bought the Crosstrek Sport in 2021, I still currently own it. It actually has similar motor to the one in this car. It's a 2.5 liter boxer. You know, we did test drive, my wife and I, other Imprezas, and I looked at the base level trim of the Impreza, which I had never driven as a journalist because they just don't put those into the press fleet. It was not good. It was so cheap feeling. What with this new generation, they've gotten rid of that trim level. There is no bargain basement, super cheap feeling Impreza, which is good because even for the money, it just wasn't, it wasn't something I would ever want to drive. Punch it. Freeway merging. Let's go. Here on the highway, we can test out the EyeSight system. We have adaptive cruise, lane centering, and all of that. All I have to do is turn it on, hit set, ready, set my target speed, and now it'll get up to and match the speed of the car in front of me if it's going slower. Once the steering wheel goes green in the center, I know that lane centering is enabled. Now this is a hands-on system, but I'm going to take my hands off just so you can see that the vehicle is actually doing the steering at this point. Subaru hasn't really gone so far as to make a hands-off system like Blue Cruise with Ford or Super Cruise with GM. It still requires hands-on, but it's getting there. And with this new version of EyeSight, not only is it a little bit slimmer into the window, which is nice. It doesn't take up as much visual space. It also has a new third camera, which is a wide angle, and that will help you with adaptive cruise going through the corners. It'll also detect cyclists and other cars when you're at a stop. It basically just adds to the capability of the already very good EyeSight system. Visibility of this car is quite good. That C-pillar even has a little knockout piece of glass in it so that you can see back there, which is very nice. This particular trim even has blind spot warning that has these little pips up in the corner. So yeah, I'm feeling like I have a really good sense of where the road is. And here I'm cruising along on the highway at 65. It's quiet. It's really quiet. They did a great job with this. And it's funny because I just don't think that much about cars like this so much because there's so much interest in crossovers and SUVs and trucks that we kind of forget that cars like this still exist. These are excellent cars for commuters as well as for people who have activities on the weekend that don't really need to go down rugged trails because not everybody's into that. Based on Subaru's own demographic surveys, they see that people who buy the Impreza are into running, they're into hiking, and half of them carry their pets in the vehicle, which I think is just a stunning number. So what this is it because it has all-wheel drive and because it has little latches in the top to be able to mount roof rails, it is an activity vehicle that doesn't look like an SUV, yet it even has decent ground clearance, so you're gonna get over most of the stuff that life throws at you, assuming you're not adventuring deep into the mountains. If you're gonna do that, there's obviously other vehicles that would be better suited. But one of the main advantages of going with a car-shaped vehicle is you have benefits of aerodynamics. This RS has improved aerodynamics on the outside and even on the underside. So even with this trim, you can get up to 33 mpgs on the highway, which most crossovers just can't do that without going to a specialized hybrid powertrain. Obviously, some people are going to be looking at this and thinking, do I really need to get a WRX? And I would say if you're a driving enthusiast and you really enjoy driving, yes, you should go with the WRX. And the main reason is the all-wheel drive system. This is the more economy and safety-oriented version of Subaru's system. The WRX has a rear bias system, which really helps with cornering and, having a lot more fun with the car. So even though this is very good, and it is fun to drive, if you really want that performance edge, you need to go with the WRX. I feel like I'm driving through a Windows 95 wallpaper out here. Yes! Oh, this is so much fun. Do I miss not driving a WRX out here? Not really. I'm just happy to be here, and this packs enough of the fun. This is probably 70% of the fun of a WRX. And it costs less money, and it has better fuel economy, and it's a hatchback. Woo! Oh yeah, there we go. Corner braking, good balance on this car. They did make it a more rigid chassis, but they also put a softer spring in to compensate for that rigidity. Hello, can't see where I'm going. Thankfully, good brakes. In this vehicle, the CVT just doesn't really feel that sporty. It feels like an economical solution. However, as far as CVTs go, I think Subaru's implementation is one of my favorites. It is a chain-based system, so you don't get that springiness that you get with, like, say, belt-driven systems like you find in certain Nissans. I think a lot of CVTs get a bad rap because the first generation of CVTs were pretty awful. The Jatco unit inside of the various Nissans in the early days, it felt like you were driving with a rubber band powertrain. Subarus don't feel like that because they're chain driven. They have a more direct feel. Now, are they as good as a manual or as a dual clutch? Obviously not. But I think that if you actually drive one, you might see that it's really not bad. In fact, it's quite good in certain instances. You know, yeah, it does feel a little bit weird doing a 0 to 60 run and having the motor basically just peg at 1 RPM, but you keep going faster. But that's also the beauty of a CVT. It can go to the optimal engine output vector on the torque curve and hold it there so you get maximum power down from the vehicle. Got a bit of a splash there. Something I have to talk about here are these seats. They are more directly mounted to the base. Now, historically, they've been on extension rails, but now they're directly bolted to the chassis. And they're not any lower. They still have the same seating position, but we have less movement in the seat itself when we're going around corners. That makes less head bobble, and head bobble can actually be a bit exhausting on long treks. So you have a much better seating position here. I'm feeling very centered and planted in this seat with excellent support. Also, the seats are very comfortable. I've been driving for close to an hour and I feel like I could go 12 more. No big deal. They're nicely supportive on the side, the padding is good, and there's no hot spots. Oh, and speaking of hot spots, the seat warmers are actually warmer than they've ever been in a Subaru. So they've improved that as well. In recent years, the Impreza was built at the SIA plant in Indiana. The production of these, however, is going to be moving over to the Gunma plant in Japan so that locally Subaru can produce Crosstreks, which are more popular than the Impreza. And so that kind of makes sense. You know, they're actually going to bring more jobs into America by producing the Crosstrek here and put the lower selling Impreza back to Japan. You know, I did not think that I would be this interested in an Impreza. I mean, I really like the Crosstrek, but this is pretty good. I could totally see this making sense for a lot of people, especially for people that have a commute. Now, when you go up into the mountains on the weekend, obviously you're not going to be hitting any trails with this thing, but for getting to trailheads, you know, most trailheads are pretty easy to drive to, and this would do fine. And in the winter, throw some winter tires on this thing and you have a snow beast. For Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, share our videos. We make them for you, and I hope you enjoy them. Whee!